wee has mess. It's not often you get to see my workbench like this, because typically I'll clean it up for when I make a video. But we also has a cup of tea, a cup of Earl Grey, in my Hobbit's to-do list mug. It's only printed on one side. Number 1, eat. Number 2, throw a party. Number 3, eat even more. 4, watch for big people. 5, vanish if necessary. 6, laugh. And 7, keep eating. Or drinking in this case. Although we do have our butter biscuits. Simmer's original butter biscuits. Delicious. Which kind of sound like something that a Hobbit would probably eat anyway. About 4 days after the world was supposed to end the last time it was predicted, back in 2012, I made a video on Christmas Eve. And it was to be the first video in a series of videos highlighting a particular build. And here we have part 2, a mere 2.5 years later. The aircraft in question, if some of you remember, is the Airfix 1/44th scale Handley Page HP-42 Heracles, that beautiful old Imperial Airways airliner, big biplane, 4-engine biplane that sort of came from that golden age of aviation of the 30s. And again, if you remember, I was intending doing a lot of scratch building on this kit. I'd just come off that Stuka, I think, and had the scratch building bug. And so I intended sort of fully building the interior, which meant that at 1/44th scale, if I used the windows that came with the kit, those horrible sort of strips of, as I call them, Coke bottle bottom windows, you wouldn't see anything. So I was trying to come up with a way of producing glazing that was as optically perfect as possible. And I had lots of little schemes, of harebrained schemes that they were. One was taking one of those windows, cutting it away from the strips, attaching it to a sprue and then plunging it through heated acetate, sort of extruding a window as it were. And these did actually work. They were quite optically clear, but the problem was they relied on what I would call the window sill on the kit. And the plastic is actually quite a thick, or has quite a thick cross section, and these plunged windows relied on that for them to adhere to. The downside of that, of course, is if I was going to scratch build the interior, the tables and chairs are going to be sitting, well, I mean, scaled up is probably a fuselage wall thickness of about that, so they're going to be sitting quite far away, and it might throw off the whole look of it. So I scrapped that idea. The other idea was to thin down the inner plastic wall and then place a strip of clear sheet along that. That didn't work out too well either, and my skills with the Dremel ain't quite up to snuff, and I kind of ballsed it up in certain places on the original kit, which was why I acquired a second one off eBay, which is the one I'm holding in my hand, to give me a little bit of come and go and take the pressure off if I screwed up on the original. And I wasn't happy with that, and I couldn't think of anything. I mean, at the back of my mind all this time, the concept of using some kind of mask was always the preferred route, but I could never quite figure out how to do it. And there's how many windows on this thing? What, 10, probably about 20 odd windows on this thing. So the idea of trying to cut 20 identical masks with that slight curve, I mean at 1/44th, remember, with that slight curve going into another straight edge and the slight curve, I just didn't think I was capable of doing it. So the kit went onto the work in progress shelf, where it remained for a good 2 years at least, if not more. And then I had this other harebrained scheme of, because where the windows are on the Heracles has this very prominently ribbed fuselage, except for the areas around the windows. They're completely flat, and the windows are flush. They do look very flush to the outer skin of the fuselage. And again, on the model, it's you've got the ribbing is represented and the area around the windows is flat. So what I decided to do was physically cut those flat areas out. The idea being to replace them with a complete sheet of acetate, or a strip of acetate that exact same size. The best laid plans. But use the second fuselage, placing it against the clear acetate and then firing through hairspray through the windows, making sure it was not so much attached, but very, very tight against the windows. Spraying hairspray through that so that that would then create the window shaped masks. Didn't work at all. And then it occurred to me that when I was building the Trumpeter Whirlwind, which was for the Kitmaker Network, I received a message on the forum from a chap who offered to make masks for it, because I was going on about how you remember the decals were the wrong colour and I was blah 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 blah. But I didn't take the chap up on the offer, but you know, it was obviously buzzing around in the back of my head for a while. So I got back in touch with this chap and asked if it would be possible if he was able to make masks for this, which he has, shall we say, come up trumps to say the absolute least, and has given me 250 pre-cut vinyl masks for the Heracles, allowing me to now go back to that idea of, well, I'm no longer using the silver, the original one, because of the fact that in certain strips of acetate in there, because I've thinned the inner wall down so much, there's hardly any purchase. I mean, I have done it with this one, but I don't think it would take much just to poke them and they would fall in, and I don't want that to happen after I've gone through all the trouble of scratch building the interior and whatnot. So I've been able to utilise the second set, which I've actually started cutting out the entire window section, but leaving that large window sill, if you like, so that I can now put the acetate. It'll be flush with the outside, but I'll be able to put a little support, a little tiny styrene strip, just to give it that little bit of support on the inside. And because it goes slightly below the level of the tables, I could build the tables out to meet the windows, so that it won't look like there's this extra thick wall section. So yes, I have to say an enormous thanks, as I said on my Facebook page, a thanks so huge that it makes Kanye West's ego almost Buddhist by comparison, to Mal at Miracle Masks. Now, if you have a look at his website and his Facebook page, you'll see that this guy can pretty much turn out masks for anything, and I will undoubtedly be using this chap's services in the future, in the very near future, because we have something coming from Kitmaker that I would like to use masks for, and it's this. Yes, we'll get to that soon enough, I should say. So yes, thank you very, very much, Mal, for allowing this build to recommence. As you can see, it's in progress. I was at the Dundee model show a couple of weeks ago, and someone, you know, on the club tables, they're often selling little kits, and someone was selling this for £2. So I snapped it up. It was actually one of the Glasgow tables, which is odd for a Ouija. And I had the idea to build this one out of box, literally out of box, with glazing and everything, so that I can, I mean, I've got the wings done on the big one. I call it the big one because it's the one that'll have all the work on it, and I've done the tail plane with all the rigging and everything. Obviously I haven't got the fuselage halves together, and I haven't built the interior. I didn't want to go and build the interior until such times as I could figure out that we will actually be able to see it. But I thought it might be an idea just to build one out of box to see what issues there are. And I'm glad I did, because the instructions actually have you put the top wing and the bottom wing together, then fit it to the fuselage. But the bottom wing cuts straight across the fuselage in one piece, and then you have these other two parts, front and back, that actually are part of the ribbing pattern, and that's meant to flow right across there, and of course if you've got all your struts and your engines and whatnot, you're not going to be able to get to this. So I had to gently sort of remove this, although it was already glued, get these in place, and as you can see there's filler in there as it is, and it's going to be tricky to say the least. So it's going to be a lot easier to deal with that like that than it would be if, as I say, if the top wing was on. But it's good fun building it out of box as well. And I thought it might be quite nice to have the two sitting side by side, an out of box build, and hopefully what I'm going to be able to do with this thing. There was some, again, issues with the canopy, or the forward canopy, which I now have complete confidence in my ability to sand it get it all nice and smooth and then polish that up. But so yes, I'm actually quite glad that I've got. I mean, I kept looking at it and I was always trying to figure out ways of doing this glazing, but masking obviously is the only way, literally. So what I'll do is, I mean, you can see it on the first. This is acting kind of as a trial. As I say, it's really handy having the spare fuselages as well. You can see there where I've put the clear acetate, so I'll just put the masks along there. I can deal with any filling that needs to be done prior to, and I can use super glue on this to make sure I get a really good adhesion, as it were. Get the masks on there and then just spray the whole lot, silver, peel them off, and we've got lovely flush, crystal clear, optically perfect windows to hopefully see the interior that I will start building very, very soon. So, hey, 2.5 years later, here we go. Never like to rush a job, me, no, not me. So, on this rather miserable day, we had, I know we have our deck chair sitting there, but it's soaked through. The weather forecast was for rain of biblical proportions, apparently. So, so far, it's off at the moment, but it's incredibly warm. Not a good combination. But I'll leave it at that, and we will see you all again soon. Toodaloo the new. I think I'll go and have second breakfast.